Well, good morning. It's Saturday and we have completed 2 weeks of self-distancing, social distancing, shelter in place. And I thought I would share some of the ways, some of the things that are going on in our home and how I'm handling it, how we're handling it. Just some random thoughts. And I guess the main thing I was thinking on this morning, I have had so many projects going that I pick up here and there just to keep my hands busy, to keep my mind off of worrying and stressors. There have been a lot of stressors, and I know there have been with you as well. But it hit me this morning. Well, and yesterday I started realizing that my chair downstairs where I sit and do all my sewing and we watch TV and I drink my coffee and sit in front of the fire, and well, it was just becoming this quite a mess. It was my nest, but my nest was spilling out all like further and further out into the living room. So I started last night bringing things back up here to the studio and sorting and finding a place for everything. And it occurred to me that I tell Sophia, I tell my kids at school, don't get out another thing until you've cleaned up your mess from the first thing. And once you've cleaned up that first thing, then you can go to the second thing, or clean up the second thing, go to the third thing, because the playroom just gets out of control. And I realized that's what she's doing, and I thought, I'm doing the same thing. I'm pulling things out, and I'm playing with them and sewing and knitting, and then I think of something else I want to do, and I drag it out, and I pull it out, and I get more supplies, or oh, I need this. And then there's, snippets of fabric and threads and yarn, and so it was out of control. So I have been organizing, and I have all these. I'm a bag lady. I love project bags. I love purses. I have since I was little. A story that my mother tells was we were living in Africa. My parents were missionaries there, and we were in Zambia. And so she sewed a lot of our dresses, 4 children. And so two girls and 2 boys. So 2 of us girls, she was sewing all the time and making our little dresses and things. And if she, at one point, she was making a dress for me, she had some extra fabric, and so she had made me a little purse, I think a little drawstring purse. And my sister came home from school, and she said, I was so excited. I said, look, Mommy made me this purse, and look how cute. I was telling her all about it. I said, and she made a dress to match. And I just thought, I was always all about the purse. It didn't matter what I was wearing, but it was all about the purse. And so apparently it still is, because I have lots. And I had posted last evening, I made a post. We had watched the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood about Mr. Rogers. And it was so touching. And I was sitting there, and I had just finished the project yesterday, and I had this little quilted needle case. The pattern was Nikki Franklin, and I was itching to get it done, and I just couldn't rest until it was finished. And I got to thinking, well, I could tuck that in this little crochet bag that I made 2014. I think it's the one. I've shown it maybe a few times, and it was when I had discovered Jessie Chorley, and I loved all things Jessie Chorley, and I was inspired, and I had made this little patch and had some little fabric, little snippets from Liberty of London, and it says love, and so I had stitched it on there. Well, I had the little flap that goes over it. See, it was supposed to, I guess you could have a button there. It was the first crochet project I ever finished. Like, I kept going to the knit shop, and I would knit, and I would buy yarn, and I would crochet, and I'd buy needles, and my husband finally said, have you made anything yet? So I was determined to show him and I had made this. Well, one of the things I learned to do little crafty things was how to make little rosettes with ribbon. Well, I'd had it there, and that was sweet, but it just seemed a little shimmery. I don't know, my taste is evolving and changing, and I was kind of tired of that, and it's been there a while. I'm not going to throw it away, but just, I got to thinking about all the things going on and all the things we're praying for, that we're thoughtful of, that we're very conscious of, very aware of this crazy time that we're in. And I have a friend, Cheryl, who had she'd made me a prayer pocket and given it to me back in 2017. It was Christmas, and we finally got to meet in person. She lives in Florence, Alabama. And so we'd met, and she gifted me this prayer pocket, which was this beautiful necklace on this beaded chain, and then a little pocket with antique vintage linens and little violets, those little vintage millinery violets. And I had a little scroll in it, a little paper, a little silk tie, and I had written out all the things that I was praying for, all of our children, all of our grandchildren, all of the ones that remember, and on the front of the little prayer pocket it said Mother's Love. And so I would just wear that when I was especially thinking of them, or one of them was going through something. I wear that necklace, and so she had sent me another one, and this one just little rosary beads on it, and this little rolled up that you can write your prayers on there. And she always said, it's not that he doesn't know what we're praying for, but sometimes it helps us to write it down, and because he already knows what our heart is. So I just thought, well, I hadn't had a place for it. I didn't know where to put it or what to do with it. And so I just stitched it on here. And so this little bag, if I want to carry it, I'm like the bag lady, carrying all my things, and you never know what I might need to occupy my time if we get hung up somewhere and I need to have my knitting, or I need to have a little notebook to make notes. So, and I love seeing in people's purses when they show those videos of what they have in their purse. I want to show you what's in mine. So this is the first thing, and I put it in one of the pockets, and I'll show you the pockets in just a minute because they're quite sweet. So this is, I had this piece of quilting, because it's so hard to think to cut up a quilt. It's just something it's hard to do. And I'd had one, I'd laundered it. I thought, well, it was really pretty bad shape, and I'd only paid $25 for it. But I just couldn't. I keep it on the front porch, and so after I laundered it, I thought, I can't do it. But I found this piece that I'd had, and so I just added the pattern called from Nikki Franklin. It called for torn linen to make your little ties, and she had linen where she put linen in the front inside cover. Well, there was just such pretty patchwork in this quilt. I thought, I hate to cover it up. And then she'd used a wool blanket, a piece from a wool blanket, really sweet pink, soft pink. And if I ever find an old wool blanket, I will cut it up and use it. But because I used the all natural cotton batting to make my Eliza Mousies, I have a ton of that, so much. So I just cut a piece of that, and then you do a long running stitch to attach it. And then, of course, I had to have a little pocket, and I found more of the piece from my favorite pajamas and stitched it on there, and just did a little running stitch around and to make the pocket, because I wanted it to be a little sturdier. So then I can slip my little scissors, because I have a scissor love for all little tiny sewing scissors, and I have quite a collection, so I have that space for that. So this I can take with me if I wanted to put some thread in, or have like a little traveling sewing kit, or for my knitting when I need to snip off the yarn. Then I have that. Then I have a little cute notebook with, when I would get order sheets and things from Rachel Ashwell from the Shabby Chic, her online shopping, they would add, the invoice would come in an envelope, and it would have this little gold paper clip and a little snippet of her fabric. And so of course I couldn't throw those away, I saved them, and they're handy in your little notebooks. I also realized that this was the little notebook that went with me to Mackinac Island, to Michigan last summer, and I had picked little daisies and some little flowers and pressed them in wax paper. So they're in there. I have the knitting pattern for the little washcloths that I make, and I'll show you one of those in just a minute. They're just easy, mindless, quick little project. I'll show you one right now. So I'm working on one, but this is one. And sometimes I attach a ribbon, and then you can hang it up. It can be like a little, if you had to pick up your teapot and it was hot, or a little kettle, you could hang it in your kitchen. Or it's great for, the pretty ones are good for your bath. I did make one in lavender, and I use it in the kitchen. So I can make those really quick, and it's just keep my hands busy, little project. So I have a work in progress. I had to pull it all out this morning because apparently when I was watching the movie last night, it calls for 44 stitches across, and I had 46, which I thought I'll just go with it. Well, then I picked it up again this morning, and without thinking, I was supposed to be decreasing, and I didn't. So I thought, you know what, I'll just pull it back out. So I've made great progress already this morning while I was drinking my coffee. And the pattern is called, if you Google it, it's called Grandmother's Favorite Dishcloth. So it's very simple, and that's that. Then if I needed to go somewhere and I needed a billfold, but my billfold is too heavy, but I got this a while back, and I've got I put it in here so I remember who made this. Bagsy Me First, and I found her on Instagram, and she takes little books, the little Beatrix Potter books that either they're damaged or she found, used, and then she makes the little wallet or a little purse out of these old books. And since the Tailor of Gloucester is my favorite Beatrix Potter tale, that's the one that I chose. And there's a little zipper pocket inside, and you can I've got change in there, or if you need to put your credit cards or something in there, there's little pockets. So that's for that purse. I have my sunglasses and a measuring tape, because my husband's always saying, do you have your measuring tape, to measure things when we're out at the hardware store, or I don't know, measure that window, or we need. So I have an old measuring tape, and one of my micron pens is wonderful for my little notebook. And let's see, what else did I tuck in here? Because I made all these little pockets. Oh, just in case I would need to have my little circulars. This is what Really Old Bear I used to make her shawls. This is the size. I think it's, they're tiny. I can't remember if they're a size 4 or maybe a 1. I don't have my glasses on, but they're tiny. And I used them to knit her little shawl, like the kind that Tasha Tudor wears. And this was some yarn I ordered from Loop in London, and I think this was called Blushing, was the shade. It was so pretty, and so it just fits right around her shoulders. And I had dropped a stitch, so I did a little cover up with a little rose there. I did I think I just did a little spider wheel, thing, so it covered up that little spot. So if you make mistakes, there you go. She just, right there. So the inside was where I really had the most fun, was creating the pockets. So I'll show you. So this was when I still had a lot of the leftover from the pajamas. They're tailor linens, beautiful. They just had the just delicious fabric and design and patterns and fabric. So I had some green gingham that matched the yarn. This is my favorite color, green, just so you know. The ruffle from the collar or a sleeve or a cuff, I'm not sure. And then some other fabric that I had. And so there's 1, 2, 3 little pockets. So when I carry something like this, I'm very, you know, I'm the storyteller and I'm very sentimental, and you're all gathering that by now. I have these things. I even put the little pin from the stitchery. My friend Sharon gave that to me when she came to visit. I think about the women that are influencers, their inspiration, they're creatives and artists. And so I think about the Jessie Chorleys, and I think about my friend Cheryl and my friend Nikki all the way across the ocean. So as I'm carrying this around and it's close to me, it's kind of like a sisterhood thing, thinking my friends are with me even though we're so far apart. And I struggle here finding people that like-minded, that love stitching, and so I rely a lot on my Instagram friends, those of you out there, and YouTubers and followers, that we just share a sisterhood of stitching friends. So it means a lot to see your posts and be inspired and to share that, have someone to share that with. So let me put all these little things, tuck them back in here, and then I want to show you a couple other little ways that I keep my things sorted and organized, where I can find things. Let's just set this down here. So I have this wonderful bag. When I saw the fabric, this is White Clover Studio. When I saw her post this project bag and that fabric, it just spoke to me. So I ordered it. She sent it. She just had a little bit of this fabric, and so she'd had some bags made up. So, and it has a great little handle, so I can hang that on the arm of my chair, and then I can close it up with this. But this is where I keep my stash of all my yarns that I work with. That's the lavender that I made a dishcloth with, and it's a bamboo and cotton, and it's wonderful. It's Tara brand. This is some that my daughter brought back from Sweden. It's alpaca. She'd been to Norway and went into Sweden and found a knit shop and knows that I love the shades. I love lavender, and she got in pink, and so Really Old Bear has a shawl in the pink. This is the Sugar Plum. This I also ordered from Loop, London, and it's a really pretty color. I've let's see. I think that's all this, but that's just a great place to store my yarns. This little bag, and again, another friend on Instagram, Sweet Wild Violets, she was getting ready to make a move to a new house, new home, and she was cleaning out all of her things, and she said, I have this purse, this box purse. Would you like it? I said, I would love it. And so I remember from the 70s them having these little purses and the decoupage, well, I love with little owls. So this is the case that when I knit shawls for Eliza the Mouse, like this, here's little Mousie, and her shawl was done in hand spun wool. This is the hand spun wool. I think I showed that on another video, but it all tucks right in here. This is the lavender, the pink for the Rosewater Cottage pink shawl, and this is just a little bit left of the lavender. I have another spool in there, And then this is the silk ribbon ties that, so this is how tiny the shawls are. This was out of the Sugar Plum. So that's how tiny the shawls are. And then I attached the ribbons for the ties to tie around her little tummy. So I do that. And then there's the little, I have the pink needles that I began with. And then I also have little tiny double points, because when you're knitting that tiny, you need teeny tiny little needles. And I also have some of these, the Addie. I love the Addie brand. So this is just so if I get an order for a little knitted shawl, then I can come and get my little purse and take that downstairs, and when I finish it, bring it upstairs and put it away before I get out my next project. Okay, so this was, I know I already showed you this, my knitting, my mouse making tin, but I just wanted to show you, this is where I have put my little needle case that was inspired by Nikki Franklin's, and it was the pattern by Ann Wood. And so I did another little video that showed all the insides of that. So that's where I keep that. All these things for making the mouse are in this little tin with this lid that I love. So when we've gone on trips before, I can take this. If we go in the car, which if we go on the airplane, it really cramps my style of packing. But if we go anywhere in the car, then I can take this with me. So that's that. So all of Nikki Franklin, I subscribed to her, there was a subscription for 2018, and that's when I fell head over heels for all the things, all the kits that she makes. And so I keep everything all together in this basket, and each month came with Oyster Bridge and Company. They did these little calligraphy little tags, and the vintage fabric ties. So when I'm decorating for the season, where I have the little linen journal on display, I'll put the corresponding little thing on the art stand with the journal. So, or maybe around the house, in different little vignettes on the shelves or the mantle. You might find them there. But I found that when I'm doing these projects, like when I did the quilted, the little quilted case, I just looked to my extra stash because every month with each subscription you get a little card of the colors that go with that month. Well, it gave me a great resource for finding the shades that matched the little case just perfectly. Like I could, when I was trying to match up the blue, there's just a pale blue. So for the writing, for pins and needles, I just went to these little cards and found the right shade, or the green was able to match it, because her shades are so very much my palette that I love. Just the soft, we call them Peter Rabbit colors. So that when you subscribe to her, and she does, I just love her. So I have to promote the people that I love and that I follow. But when you get that monthly subscription, or whatever it is you get, the things that she sends are just beautiful. And I even, she tucked in this little piece of lace in one of her kits. And so that's what I pulled out to use for that. It called for, she had suggested some antique lace. And so I found that in a stash of the things. So that's so I keep, in this basket, I keep my special scissors with the little Eiffel Tower, my Saju scissors, and they're the Eiffel Tower. When you hold them up, the little engravings, so love those. So those stay in here, and some little hoops, and I think that was all I was going to show you from that. Then I have this bag I loved. I got it years ago, and it has served so many purposes. It was a little diaper bag when Sophia came to us, and she still was in diapers and little sippy cups, and I would just carry this around with her little things. Well, then as she got old enough, she wanted to drag it around, and she wanted to use it for her baby dollies, and so eventually I got it back. So this is where some of you may have seen the little cross stitch that I'm doing. It's a little tiny miniature dollhouse sampler, and it will go in Lula, Kate, and Eliza's abode in their little pink house, the dollhouse. So it's tiny, but I have that in here, and here's the little hoop that I have found, and I need to put some around here, but I need to get some more of the bias tape to put, so that if you have some really fragile fabric that you're working with, like when I was doing the little handkerchief for Eliza's little bed and stitching that, it was starting to really pull at the fabric. So if you'll put this binding or bias tape around it, and actually it needs to be around both, I guess, then it also keeps it from making such a crease, such a firm ring in your fabric. So, but then this is where I also thought I can tuck away. I've got all these projects that I still have to do. This one is the Girl Seed bag from Tasha Tudor. This is when we went to for the cottage tour and her cottage gardens. The Rookery is the gift shop there in Vermont at Tasha Tudor's home. And when we toured there, then we went in the gift shop, and there were these kits, and I've had them for 5 years. So I'm finally getting around to them. It's just, you know, when you see something that you like, go ahead and snag it, because you'll eventually get to it. Or if you find ribbons that you like and you think, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but it pulls at you, you're eventually going to use it. Within reason, but as you see little things here and there, don't think, oh, I have no idea what I'll ever do with this, and so I shouldn't buy it. If it really speaks to you, you're going to find a way. It's going to come to you if it's something that you really love. So I'm finding that I'm thankful that I got those kits when I did. So they're tucked away in this little Kath Kidston bag. The other thing, Really Old Bear, I gave her a little hamper. And so when I'm telling her stories, she has her sewing hamper. And this was actually a gift from a dear sweetheart that followed along and loved Really Old Bear. And so she sent this hamper, and I have, it is a little, things tucked away, a little tiny pin cushion, and some pink thread, and the little glove that was in this little box from my friend Julie Marie. So I keep that in there, and so I think of her. So that's her thing. I think that's, I wanted to show you, because I'd shown, okay, so here is the bed, and here is the little coverlet, the little thing with a verse around for little Lula Kate, the doll, and her doll bed. And there's the little pillow that I had stitched for her on the sewing machine, the treadle machine. So that goes back in her dollhouse. I think that's all I have. I just want to leave you with this, that we're going to get through this time. I don't know how long it will be. We don't know. But if we can keep supporting each other and keep encouraging each other and keep finding distractions, it doesn't mean we're not taking it seriously. It means that we're letting our mind go to something that brings some joy, so that we can survive and get through it with our sanity. And so I hope this brings you some joy today. I hope it inspires you to maybe find some order in your nest. And I can hear my family downstairs coming up, so I'm going to end here. And I wish you the best and good health and blessings.